Coalition Loud and Proud, Civilly Disobedient Media. We're here in the hometown, Cumberland, where soon-to-be ex-Congressman, retired Congressman David Cicilline has been regaling folks at the Cumberland Senior Center. Not the first time. Actually, he's a member here, and he's been here many, many times before. Congressman, I've got to ask you sort of the darker side of price controls. It's a fundamental in economics that price controls can actually promote product shortages. Do you worry about market, some would say market negotiation, market laws, or market interference with these will promote product shortages?
Not at all. Look, every other developed country in the world limits the prices of prescription drugs either by setting the price or having the ability to negotiate discounted prices. Only in America do we, up until we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, did we not permit that. We pay the highest prescription drug prices in the world. Many of these seniors have to make choices between taking medications or cutting them up or not having a meal. That should never be the case in this country, and we have been fighting for 20 years to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, to have the ability to negotiate discounted prices with the big pharmaceutical companies, and to cap the cost of insulin. We finally succeeded in the Inflation Reduction Act because of the leadership of President Biden and the House and Senate Democrats. This is the beginning of finally driving down the costs and preventing these big pharmaceutical companies from gouging consumers. I have no concern about shortages. I have every concern about people being able to access what they need.
A quick question, if you will, on the banking crisis. There are those that would argue that the Federal Reserve interest rate increases, again, the Fed, actually may have stimulated the crisis at Silicon Valley Bank. All of a sudden, the reserves, which ironically were largely invested in very safe securities, cratered in value because of the increase in interest rates. Is it time to have a serious conversation about the, if you will, the role of the Federal Reserve Bank in America?
Look, I'm not an economist to know whether that's actually true. I think one of the things I know for sure is that some of the regulations that were in place to be sure that banks had the kind of liquidity that they needed to remain solvent were rolled back during the Trump administration. I think that invited this kind of cratering of a bank. So I think we need to look at those regulations which were in place to ensure that banks were secure because of the amount of the capitalization and what they maintained in terms of their own balance sheets. And those were rolled back. I think I've learned recently that the Silicon Valley Bank was one of the people advocating to get rid of those regulations, and so we have that bank collapsing. So I think that's what we ought to be looking at, the regulations that are keeping our banks solvent, first and foremost.
And just final quick question. Of course, congratulations on your new role. The Rhode Island Foundation has really been a benchmark for success in terms of its involvement in the community affairs and the future of Rhode Island. Some are going to say that given your national prominence, that your Rhode Island Foundation is going to start to grow outside of Rhode Island and its involvement. What's your first priority as the new director, the new
Well, my first priority is to really get to know the staff there and to understand all of the work that they're doing. The Rhode Island Foundation is one of the largest and oldest community foundations in the country. It has done extraordinary work here in Rhode Island. I think you'll see its work limited to Rhode Island, but there's lots of partnerships that are possible, lots of growth of that work that I hope to lead over the next several years at the Rhode Island Foundation. I'm very excited for this opportunity.
Final question. You know, an interesting side effect of the COVID-19 crisis is that an entire generation of Rhode Island School of Design students have stayed in Providence as opposed to leaving almost immediately for Fields International. Is that something that you think the Rhode Island Foundation should get involved in, preventing that brain drain and keeping these kids here? Some of the most talented artists really in the world.
Well, I think that's been a challenge for a very long time, not just from RISD, but from all of our institutions of higher education. We have extraordinary talent here, and making sure that as a state we're doing everything we can to keep this talent in Rhode Island so they can create jobs, create companies, be great entrepreneurs, I think is a priority for everyone, and I certainly think that that's one of the things that the Rhode Island Foundation has been a part of for a very long time.
And finally, can we expect to see you tending bar downtown?
No.
Thank you, sir. All right.